Thank you. Well, Jessica just did my whole talk, so that's all we have today. We're going to wrap it up here. That was lovely. Can we give some love to the amazing volunteers that do this? I'm so impressed. I haven't been in this room in far too long, and I miss it. I do the typical parental blame game of saying, my daughter's school drop-off keeps me from being here, and it's true, but I'm going to be back one of these days. But I do miss it. There's something really magical to this room, no matter where this room is. It's the people that show up at Creative Mornings that leave you feeling hopefully inspired and uplifted and reminded of what you're doing here, why you live here, why you're an artist of any kind, and go about your day feeling really good. So let me practice my clicker here. Okay. We're here to talk about growth, but I managed to pivot the G word to a different G word. We're going to talk about gentrification. Get excited. Lock the doors, you're all stuck. We're going to get through it together. I do want to talk about Charleston today, a city I love very deeply, but I want to start by sharing just a quick reflection of how I got here in 2008, which dates me, y'all. That's a long time ago. I had just graduated college in North Carolina in 2008 and took what I had saved up from slinging greasy hush puppies in a seafood restaurant to backpack around Europe for a couple weeks with my girlfriend, Rachel. And we didn't have smartphones. We didn't have Wi-Fi hotspots. We had a few really dirty guidebooks and a big backpack and a lot of maybe naive trust of strangers to point us along the way. But it was a magical trip. And when I got back home to North Carolina, I had no plan, but I did not need a roadmap to point me to Charleston. I had an older sister who did. She was living here at the time and still is. And she said one day, Jordan, I know you have no idea what you're doing with your life, so come visit me in Charleston. She said, I have an apartment in the same building as mine downtown that's coming up for rent. Just come check it out, see what you think. Maybe you'll love Charleston. So I did. I came down to visit her one weekend that summer in 2008 and snagged the second floor, first half of this house. Signed a lease and said, I'm just going to come here. We'll figure it out. I don't know anybody but my sister. I have no idea what I'm doing in my life, but I'll figure it out. So I moved here, and this house plopped me right into the heart of the city. It's right by Colonial Lake. And you're not going to believe this, but I think my rent was like $400 a month. And I could walk or bike to any number of local businesses, so many unique cafes and coffee shops and retail stores, places I'd never seen before in my whole life. And it solidified my choice of Charleston as I started to explore after bopping around so many different cities and towns in Europe that all have their own unique identity, their own flavorscapes, their own demographics. And landing here in Charleston and seeing the unique culture that is Charleston, I said, okay, this feels good. This feels right. And there's places over the last 17, 18 years that have come and gone, as happens. But I've watched that identity of Charleston through the business landscape lens slowly erode away. It's not gone. But some of my beloved spots, I'll shout them out. Upper Deck? Oh, no, I don't want to make you sad. I know. I see you, friends. Closed for Business, Vickery's Tavern, going further back, Martha Lou's, Hominy Grill. Okay, does anyone remember the Magnifluous Toy Emporium? Oh my God, I thought it was going to be crickets. I loved that store. Even as an adult, you felt like a kid going in there, and they always had ridiculous storefronts. I loved it so much. Yeah, okay, that's a little slight, like a year before my time, but my husband Marcus talks about it all the time still. Before I moved here, if you do any research on like the hotspots of Charleston in any prior decade, one story that keeps coming up, and that is Brooks Motel and Brooks Restaurant. And those were just a couple of the businesses that were really thriving along the corridor that is Morris Street in particular, but also Cannon and Spring. Those corridors were really hotbeds for immigrant communities, for Jewish communities, for Black communities. And it wasn't just people thriving in their houses, it was businesses and business owners thriving here, right where we are in this place. Now, several forces have changed the landscape, particularly in this part of the community. A big trigger of that was the construction of the crosstown, which we all probably hate. We all hate getting stuck on the crosstown. But it did bisect neighborhoods, it displaced many of the Black residents here, and it was a trigger for change in the business community on the peninsula. If you've been here more than a handful of years, which sounds like most of you have, you probably have other businesses that you've seen come and go, and maybe some of those were really special to you. Maybe places you would bring your friends or family when they visited, or places that you'd go on your birthday. And there's a natural ebb and flow to the business community, right? There's certainly always going to be some level of churn. But I'm here to say, I feel like the level of change of the neighborhood serving businesses, the local serving businesses, particularly on the peninsula and some parts around it, that level of change over the last 20, 30 years is perhaps unnatural. One of the great drivers of this growth is luxury tourism. And for so long, there's been an unrestricted amount of focus and investment from the city's leadership on attracting the highest bidder, the highest paying guests, the highest grossing developers, and that level of focus and intention continues to wreak havoc on what Charleston is, what it looks like, what it feels like, who it's for, and certainly who it's not for anymore. So I want to define what intentional or what good, this is the picture of the Brooks Motel. What is good growth? We are all the creative force and the intentional energy of the city. We are the reason why growth happens. We are the catalyst for that, or part of the catalyst. But growth can be a paradox, right? We all love the idea of success and thriving communities, but oftentimes when a neighborhood gets good, it starts to eat its soul. And growth is inevitable, especially in a place like Charleston. But is the displacement that comes with that inevitable? That's what I want to ask today and dig into. So growth isn't just about population size or the tax base of a place. To me, it's about the vitality, the resilience, the rootedness. And good growth requires good roots, just like Jessica said. No plant is going to grow tall and strong without good roots. So good growth, to me, grows the pie. It's just growing opportunity, it's growing wealth, it's growing resources for that place without sacrificing the recipe, the character, the history, the demographics. Good growth, to me, maintains the flavor profile of that pie and the integrity of the ingredients. To me, a city's unique identity is its competitive advantage. That's the arts, right? It's the creative community. It's the immigrant communities. It's the historic architecture. It's what grows here, what food is produced here. It's the landscape. My personal favorite, it's the local independent business community. So losing character is a failure of design, but losing the demographics of that place is a failure of policy. Gentrification is a policy failure. It often starts when there's a new influx of public investment, like a new transit system or sidewalks or parks and protected green space, aligning with restrictive or inadequate housing policies. That's where it all starts, whether that's exclusionary zoning or a lack of rent stabilization. The problem is not new people moving in. It's existing people being forced out. Thank you. I heard those snaps. I'm married to a poet. You can snap anytime. Okay. Earlier this year, I came across this website run by the National Community Reinvestment Coalition, which is a group working towards just economies all across the country. They have a website, ncrc.org/GD. We'll take you to an interactive map. Anyone else love an interactive map? Yes, I love it so much. So they did a ton of research and studies all across the country to dig into the kind of hotbeds of displacement and gentrification around the community. And you know our girl Charleston made that list. Yes, she did. You can click around on the map, zoom in on Charleston, different pockets and tracts of the peninsula, North Charleston, off the peninsula, and just watch how between 1980 and 2020, how populations have shifted. And I clicked in on, again, where we are. We're right here in that little circle. And you can watch, you can even automate, you can hit play and it moves for you. You can watch the changes in demographics. And you'll notice that this track that we're in, officially gentrified, leading up to 1980. You see where this white line crisscrosses with the blue line, so the white population increasing and the black population really sharply declining. Now, different tracts of the peninsula gentrified in different decades. This was one of the earlier ones. So again, losing character is failure of design, losing demographics to me, failure of policy. I want to share a few quick examples of where I've seen policy and public pressure aligned to protect certain vulnerable community assets. I just had the privilege this past week of going to DC for the Small Business Anti-Displacement Network Conference. It was very nerdy and very fun, and I met my people, including a few folks who work for MEDA, which is the Mission Economic Development Agency. If you've ever been to San Francisco, you probably beelined to the Mission District because it's where you're going to get the most dense experience of culture and amazing people and food. Well, MEDA, not Meta, to be clear, MEDA combined tenant advocacy, like legal services for eviction defense, small business stabilization, like helping legacy stores secure leases and funding, and then direct city planning intervention, like pushing for stronger inclusionary zoning and commercial rent stabilization policies to protect the identity of the mission. And they've had to do this, as you know, for decades, over and over again, with the tech boom and now with the AI boom. There's leadership there that are trying to rename the Mission District to AI or Area AI. Yeah, so they're showing up in force, and the staff there said, a lot of what we do, how we solve it is through having a party. And they said that looks like sending dozens and hundreds of the mission's entrepreneurs and residents to city council meetings and showing up in force and letting their voice be heard. To me, that means effective defense requires that multi-pronged approach. It combines legal, economic, and policy interventions. As we mentioned, artists are often the first wave of people in any neighborhood revitalization, and also the first to be displaced due to the rising commercial rents and residential rents. But in Boston, a group of artists and activists formed Midway Artist Studios, and they formed a nonprofit, partnered with a developer, tapped some city resources to buy their building and establish a permanently affordable artist-owned space deemed as a cultural land trust, which I love. I feel like Charleston is ready for some cultural land trusts. Policy does not just regulate, it should empower things like collective ownership. In places that are experiencing rapid growth, it often means more pollution and traffic and public space being dominated by vehicles, which can really erode away a neighborhood's livability. If you've been watching the news the last few years, you've seen Barcelona respond to their rapid growth in tourism. And they implemented recently something called a super block. They conjoined 9 adjacent blocks into one single unit where the automobile traffic is really restricted and the interior streets were ceded to pedestrians and pop-up markets and green space. They used land use policy to redefine who the city was for and return space and the quality of life back to the residents. And rapid growth can threaten the city's unique identities of its neighborhoods. But over in Portland, Oregon, they use a neighborhood planning approach to give each local area formal power to develop and influence specific plans for their unique needs. They use something I'm now obsessed with called community benefit agreements, which is a legally binding agreement between developers and the community. The community gets to weigh in and say, we demand affordability, we demand jobs, we demand taking care of this part of our character in exchange for permission to build. And I love it. So community voice can and should be legislated into the planning process, not an afterthought. I want to bring it down from these policy ideas to our own personal actions. Your spending choices, whether you're an entrepreneur or just a citizen, your spending choices, both personal and business, are your own form of community development. I hope you'll go home today and add to your bios online that you're a community developer, because you are. You're voting with your dollars every single day for this community. You can choose to prioritize the local, legacy-owned, and culturally relevant vendors and businesses. You can choose to seek out retail or artist studio space with landlords who are going to offer a long-term, community-focused lease instead of short-term financial gain. We can be policy disruptors. Policy is written by those who show up. You can show up to the zoning board meetings, the planning commission meetings. They are public meetings for you. Your presence and your voice and your perspectives as creative entrepreneurs matters so much more than you probably think. We can advocate for solutions like community land trusts and permanently affordable housing and commercial incentives. I want us to embrace the power of no and the power of we. We can say no to the hugely purely extractive projects. We can leverage our network, which is this very room, to fund and organize collective community assets like the artists who bought their studios in Boston. Growth should be not some tidal wave that we have to hang on to for dear life. It should be the garden that we're tending every day. We should tap into the structures and policies like the ones mentioned that were once just ideas that were championed by people like you and me. I want to challenge us all to think about one local meeting you're going to go to. You can watch so many online. So if you're feeling nervous, like start by streaming a council meeting online. It's hugely entertaining. Or grab a buddy, grab me, grab someone in the room to go to a meeting. Maybe it's a neighborhood association meeting, maybe it's a council meeting, and just start to understand who's making the decisions, how they're making them, and how they're impacting your neighborhood. I continue to grow in my neighborhood in Park Circle. I did get displaced off the peninsula. But I love Park Circle. I landed well. And I'm growing a family now. And I grow a sad little garden. I watch my daughter grow too fast every day. And I watch her pour love into the businesses around us. She knows them by name. They know her by name. And I really hope that her future neighborhood is not swarming with luxury hotels and Amazon delivery trucks. I hope she's surrounded in 10, 15 years by people who are well, who are thriving local business owners and artists who are caring for this place for decades to come. So as you go out into the world today, I want you to take stock of your neighborhood, maybe in a way you haven't yet. Really think about what makes it special, what's at risk, who's at risk, and what do you want it to look like in a decade? And what can you do about it? So thank you. Thank you.